second to kick in. Okay, all good.
Perfect. All right, welcome everyone to Brisbane Azure User Group. So we've had a great interactive conversation before this meeting, and we'll have one after the group. The interactive conversation won't be recorded. So what we're going to try and do is get some more group interactivity. So if you're interested in that, come along and be part of the conversation. So Brisbane Azure User Group, welcome to October. So it's a wonderful month. We've got some wonderful things lined up for you today. But before we get to that, let's thank our sponsors. So Codify and Microsoft, they've been with us for so long now, and they've always been here to support our team. So really big thank you to Codify and thank you very much for Microsoft. So can't thank you these guys enough. They're here for us all the time whenever we need them. And there wouldn't be much of a group without people getting involved. So we want to hear from you guys. We don't mind what format you have. In fact, shake it up, make it a bit different. It doesn't have to be a straight presentation. You can have a conversation. You can have anything you want. Get involved. We'd love to hear from you. Currently, we've got November open for a full presentation, and December we'd like to do some small community involvement pieces. That would be ideal. So it's the unconvention night in December, and that's where we can get more participation and more, small targeted pieces of content to you. So you don't have to do a big thing. This doesn't have to be huge. Reach out to us. We can team you up with other people. We can get you involved. So this is the email group. Just send us an email. These slides will be available later on, so you can always have a look at the slides then, or right now, baug@outlook.com.au, grab that and send us an email, and we'd love to hear from you. All right, so a few updates. Not a huge month this month, but we've got a couple of interesting updates. So Gartner Magic Quadrant, so Microsoft has got into the leader segment for enterprise integration for PaaS. So that's really good to see. And sorry about that. And also we have data integration tools. Microsoft is also in the leader quadrant for that. So that's really good to see. Few quick updates. So DDoS and firewall updates to VNets. So now you can put DDoS and firewall into your VNets. And it provides you with that sort of protection. So it's really easy to get that up and going. We've got some cost management updates. There's a new view that's coming out for cost management. There's also, you can scope your reservations to a management group. So that's above the subscription. So that's a new way that you can do your reservations. So that's really cool, a bit more flexible. So in the firewall, there's a few things here that I just wanted to call out. So auto-generated certificates, that makes it a lot easier. So availability zones. So now the Azure data centers are rolling out with more availability zones in addition to the region failover. And you can now deploy Azure Firewall without the public IP. So that's through that forced tunneling that you can now do. So if that's interesting to you, check it out. It's a link here below. You can see more information. Zone redundant. So with the rollout of the increased availability zones, so we've now got zone redundant storage. So things like NetApp were providing this as an option that you could buy from a third party, but it was pretty expensive. So this has now been rolled up and it's now very, very cost effective. The IOPS are also, no reduction in IOPS. So you've got high performance, cost effective zone redundant storage that you can leverage. On-demand capacity reservations. So the way I look at this is this would go really hand in hand with your reserved instances. So you can get your reserved instances, so you base quota, and then you can get an on-demand capacity reservation to sort of like burst that guarantee of VMs in the data centers. So that's, if you've got things like you've got a DR and you want to guarantee that you've got the ability to spin up those VMs in that remote region, this is a great way to reserve all of that compute, so you're not left without it if an event occurred. All right, so I'm going to flick over to Wayne. So Wayne, take it away. We've got a great event coming up with Hudson.
Yeah, thanks, Damien. Yeah, so I've been working with Hudson for a little while now, and we've been putting together a hackathon where, so if you like what you see tonight, if you watch Amrit's talk and you think, oh, damn, I'd love to do some of this hands-on, we've got a little hackathon coming up. It's only a very small event, but it's very hands-on and very collaborative. And the idea is that we'll get people doing Azure Bicep and PowerShell desired state configuration in a hands-on challenge environment. It'll be fun, collaborative. It'll be completely free for all the attendees. And I'll be sort of coaching the event. And I'm a huge fan of desired state configuration and Bicep. And I'll be able to help anyone who sort of gets stuck along the way through the hackathon. So if you've got yourself a laptop, you're interested in being a cloud engineer or being a DevOps engineer, you're interested in Azure and automation and DevOps, then reach out to Pablo at Hudson, and Pablo Calabi at Hudson, and he'll be able to get you registered for the event. It's on November 6th.
Hey, Wayne, can you pop that into the chat? I think that'd be really good to put up so people can see it.
Yeah, I actually don't see the chat. Am I missing something?
Oh, okay. Wait. I don't know, Dan. Is this chat only available?
Is anybody else having trouble seeing the chat? I'm wondering if there's some setting in this meeting, because I can see the chat and Damien can.
Yeah, I can see it if you turn on chat.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be there. The bubble with the 2 lines in it.
Is this the right?
Yeah, that's who we're looking for. Yep, National Practice Lead for DevOps and Security at Hudson. That's who we're looking to reach out to. Yep.
Fantastic, and I think we can circulate this on Meetup afterwards. So if you are interested, and I absolutely recommend getting involved in a hackathon, they're fantastic. Let's reach out to Pablo and get involved.
Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, hackathons are awesome, and I do agree. DSC is fantastic, by the way. it's amazing.
Hey, Damien, I think you didn't get my updated deck on here, but there's an event tomorrow night. I might just steal the screen for a second.
Yeah, go for it. Yep.
Okay, let me just do that. No, that's not what I want to do. They've moved all the buttons in here. You have to stop sharing, I think.
Okay.
Okay, can people see that screen now? Integration down under?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so this is happening tomorrow night. If you're interested in integration, we've got Martin Abbott, who works for Microsoft now, and Bill Chestnut, who's like a real veteran MVP, giving us a talk about EDI and how you can leverage Azure Logic Apps to do that. So yeah, feel free to join us tomorrow. I think it starts at 6 o'clock Queensland time, because I think it's 7 o'clock in Victoria, where Bill runs it from. So yeah, check it out. And since I got the deck, I might as well go through the rest of the slides, and you can talk, Damien, if you want.
Awesome. So we just got some. Oops, sorry, I should have clicked admit, and I did not. Sorry, my bad. So Slack channel, if you want to get involved. Next slide. YouTube channel, so we'll post this up to YouTube. And we got some training resources, so if you have other training resources, send it in if it's things that are better than these, but it's a great place to start. 30 days to learn it is pretty cool.
Learn, is that learned at Microsoft as well, or is that something different?
I think it might be.
Okay, cool.
And there's some of my favorite blogs. So If you guys have other blogs that are better, I mean, you can't be better than Hanselman and Scott Goose, kind of okay. But if you have other blogs, let us know. Like if you have things that are pretty cool. And so tonight, without any further ado, Amrit is a certified developer and architect. He's in Melbourne, so that's pretty cool. It's awesome that we're doing these remote, and we're going to have a look at Bicep. So it absolutely simplifies Azure, and it's a domain-specific language that'll make the ARM templates, well, easier for some people. I think they're pretty easy, but you know, I could have my mind changed. So Wayne believes that I'm going to be a believer once I start getting into this, but we'll see. It does look cool, and I don't have to look up the references for all the IntelliSense, so that's pretty cool. Away you go, Amrit. So over to you. Welcome. I think you might be on mute.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yep, that's good.
Yeah, hi everyone. Welcome to Azure Bicep Getting Started. My name is Amrit Sidhu and I work with Velrada in their Melbourne office as an Azure cloud consultant. I'm mainly working on Azure PaaS services in integration space. So as a side project, I just started learning Bicep couple of months back, and I agree with Wayne what he said that once you start using Bicep, you probably will never go to ARM templates. So I thought I'll share my my knowledge with you guys today. So it's try to make it demo heavy so you get maximum out of it. So let's get started. So okay. Yeah, let's first talk about why we want to move away from ARM templates, and you know what's the disadvantages we have with ARM templates. So the first thing is they are in JSON format, right? So JSON was a language originally created for machine-to-machine communication. It was probably never invented to write a code, right? So that's one challenge, and other one is it's hard to read. All your parameters, variables are on the top, and then all your resources are towards the bottom. So you have to scroll up and down. I will show you with Bicep how you can declare variables, parameters close to your resource. You don't have to declare on the top. So it's hard. It's not easy to read, right? And it's very verbose. ARM templates. Let me just real quick switch to. I got a snapshot of what. Let me share with you. This is a snapshot I took. ARM comparing with Bicep. So on the right hand side, I have an ARM template. I'm just declaring two variables, environment and one location variable and environment parameters. If you see, it's 8 to 10 lines of code. And on the left hand side, I'm doing exactly same thing in Bicep. It's just literally 2 lines of code. So yeah, that's the difference we are talking about. And in programming language, we all have been taught whatever C#, Java, that always divide bigger classes into small classes. And if you try to implement the same approach with ARM template using linked template, nested template, it becomes very messy very soon, right? And it's a learning curve as well. With time you learn ARM template, but still, if you are starting, it's a bit learning curve in the beginning. So yeah, and so let's talk about now what Bicep has to offer. So Bicep is a domain-specific language, which is basically translate to ARM templates, right? So Bicep work as an abstraction layer on top of ARM. So it's not replacing ARM templates. It's basically abstracting the complexity of ARM templates, right? So you write your infrastructure as a code in ARM in Bicep, and then it automatically translates and to ARM internally you don't have to worry about that, and and then it's gets sent to Azure Resource Manager, right? And then there are some of the major benefits of Bicep. So syntax improvement, as I showed you, the way you create parameters and variables and string concatenation, all that, the great improvements. And there's a lot of focus on modular um, templates. So you create a small modules and then basically use those modules, right? So for every resource, you create a module, you parameterize it, and then you can reuse it. And I think there is a repository coming up as well, like the Kubernetes images. You can upload your modules, share with the organization. Microsoft is going to publish modules that standard modules that you can use instead of building from scratch. And resource dependency management, another feature that I loved, so is that in ARM template you have to put depends on, right? Everywhere, and there are chances you're gonna miss it. And with Bicep, it automatically figures out majority of the time resource dependency based on how you use it. I'm going to show you in the demo how you can, maximize that Bicep's ability to automatically figure out dependency. And tooling is great. So with the Visual Studio Code, they have extension and you can install Bicep locally to run the commands. And day zero support now for all Azure resources and API versions. And there are no state files. As with Terraform and other providers, you have to maintain state, but with Bicep you don't have to maintain any the state files. And pre-flight validation, so you can basically with using what if tell Bicep to do some pre-flight validations, and if you're happy and if you you see that you are not overwriting or not doing changes that you are not attended, then you can roll back, and it's production ready. So as of version 0.03, Bicep is now supported by Microsoft support plan as 100% parity with ARM template. So whatever you can do with ARM template today, you can do with Bicep. Uh, and basically ARM to Bicep transition, right? So if you are transitioning from ARM to Bicep, these are some tips. Like ARM is here to stay. Don't panic or don't think that you have to migrate from ARM immediately. I would suggest that use Bicep on new projects and move your existing templates when it makes sense. So if something is working in production, don't I would suggest don't try to touch it to change it. Whenever there is a migration or there is something happening, maybe tackle it. And there's a great feature with Bicep called Bicep decompile. You can decompile your ARM template into Bicep templates, and I had great success with that. So I'm going to show you that as well. And now let's start.
Sorry, we just had a question from Tim. Does it manage to figure out circular dependencies?
Yes. Yeah, I had yeah. It showed me. I think I recently was trying something. It warned it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Installing Bicep. Now, first thing you want to do is you want to install Bicep, right? So if you have Azure CLI already installed and you have a version greater than 2.20 installed on your machine, then when you run any Bicep command, az bicep install, it will install, or when you run az bicep version or build, it's going to automatically install, right? Or else you can run az bicep install, az bicep upgrade whenever new version comes, and you can check az bicep version to check what version you are running. And this is the, or if you don't have Azure CLI installed, you can download the binaries from this link, the GitHub repository. And this is the extension, Visual Studio extension that you have to install to use the tooling to get the IntelliSense, right? And these are some common commands for compiling and deploying your Bicep. So Bicep build, and then you give the name of the Bicep file main.bicep. It will compile it, and if there is any errors at compile time, it will show you errors. And you can compile multiple files like main.bicep second file, and then you don't have to compile to ARM to deploy. You can directly deploy your Bicep templates now using AZ deployment group create, and then just point to your main.bicep file or whatever name you use, and you can override parameters with parameters files, or you can inline parameters. So if you want some as part of your CI/CD DevOps, so you can do that as well. And this is the syntax to declare a resource in Bicep. So there's a keyword called resource, and there is a symbolic name. This is just any name like in C# you want to give to your variable, and then there is a type. Type is basically a combination of resource provider like Microsoft.storage, right? And then your actual resource type like storage account, and then API version. So and then underneath it you have properties like, for example, in this case it's a storage account, so you get name, location, and school, right? And these are some common syntax with the parameters. First one is if you're just declaring parameters, there's a keyword called param, and then name of the parameter, and then type a string, int, array, object, whatever. So that way. So and if you want to assign a default value, you can say equal to default value, and then you can put some annotations like minimum length, maximum length, and description, all those things. And you can use allowed values to restrict whatever values the consumer of your modules can pass. And there is a secure keyword to accept sensitive parameters, and you can even use parameters inside another parameter. For example, here the site name so is the first parameter, and then in the second parameter hosting plan name we are using the site name parameter, right? That's also allowed. So and these are the variable syntax, so where the variable name and equal to value. So you don't have to declare the type, it will automatically figure out based on what you assigned, whether it's string, int, or object, right? For example, here I'm assigning var name equal to my resource, and it will figure out that it's a string. And here is true equal to true is a boolean, and numeric and object and an array. And output, so same way like you want to return output from your ARM template, you want to return output from your Bicep template. So you say output keyword and then name of the variable, and then data type equal to the value. For example, here I'm returning a storage account ID. So it's output storage account ID. It's a string, and storage account.id. And string interpolation is another great feature that I really like with Bicep. So if you look at here in ARM template, so you have to use concat, and then it's lengthy. It gets a bit messy if you join more and more variables and parameters. With Bicep, it is very easy. It's like C# kind of syntax, right? And there are lots of inbuilt functions you can use like resource ID or resource group.location, to upper, concat, and take, for example. All those functions are available. And you can use conditional assignments as well. For example, here in the name of the school, I'm saying if it's geo replication parameter is true, then question mark, and then it's a standard GRS, otherwise it's standard LRS, right? So you can do that as well. And loops. So if you want to loop through resources, you want to create multiple storage account, multiple containers, for example, you can use range. So from 0 to 2. So it will create 3 storage accounts, 0, 1, and 2. And similarly, you can define the starting point of your range, right? And you can use an array of strings as well. And and you can in the last example, you can access both an array item and this is index, right? So for example, here I have an array of locations, Australia East, Southeast, and I want to access the index. So this is the syntax, so I can access I will be 0 and 1, and the location will be, yeah, Australia East and Southeast. And the deployment scope, you can deploy to resource group, subscription, management group, and tenant. So if you want to create RBAC rules and those things, so you can target to tenant as well. For example, in this, I'm creating a resource group, which is a subscription level resource. So my target scope is subscription, and then I create a resource group, and then I'm creating a storage account, which is a resource group level scope, right? A resource. So then you can set up scope, which is RG, and I created the resource group here. So it will be scoped to that resource group. And there's an easy way to access Key Vault, a lot easier actually to access your secrets and password sensitive data from Key Vault. For example, there's a Key Vault called existing, so you can use existing keyword to access Key Vault. If, for example, if you already have a Key Vault in your core resource group, or you already provisioned, or there is another team which is managing that Key Vault, you can use existing keyword, and you can use scope if it lives in a different resource group from the one that you're deploying to. So, or if it's in diff subscription as well, right? And then you can say KV, like that's my name of the variable that I gave, and then get secret, and then you pass the name of the secret, right? Only catch here is that, for example, this is my module, right? Is SQL.bicep. So that admin password that has to be used with secure decorator, right? So only you can pass the secret to a parameter which is secure. So yeah, and let's get started. That's pretty much it from slides perspective. So let's get started with some demo. So before we start the demo, I have some existing stuff. For example, I have this storage account, right, in ARM template. So I have already created this storage account. I have been using it from last, like, let's say, a number of projects, and I don't want to, create my bicep from scratch. So what I'm doing here is I have this couple of parameters. Then I have containers. I'm creating 2 containers, container 1, container 2. So first I'm creating a storage account, and then I'm creating containers. So yeah, here I'm just looping over my array, and then I'm declaring management policies to restrict how many, for number of days my the files that will upload will stay. So after whatever I define retention in days, which is like 15 days, my files will be automatically removed from the blob storage. So let's see how we can, use this. So if we run, az bicep d compile f file, f is like you can either say file template file, I think, or short form, yeah, as well. So we say arm slash it says storage dot. It will do its best effort, right, to decompile that to bicep. So if you see here, the bicep file got generated. It's got its logo as well, and then yeah, this is the bicep file that got generated. So it's pretty much doing everything. It does really good job actually, most of the cases. And yeah, so it got my storage account, my containers, and if I don't like the names, I can change that. And yeah, it's creating management policies and all that stuff. So that's really cool. And other thing I really like is I was recently working with API management, and I was using Bicep. So this really cool function, which is load text content. For example, what I'm doing here is I am applying a policy at the API level. And if you work with API management, policy is basically an XML document, right? And I don't want to inject the XML document like this. For example, let me say is so I can inject the value of that as like this, and I can escape all the characters like double quotes. But the problem is if somebody wants to change it, it's not easy to do code review and all that stuff with this kind of strings. So what you can do is you can create a separate file, XML file. If you see here, this is my policy, and all I'm doing is at the runtime when I'm deploying Bicep, it will load the value from this file and it will deploy. So that's really cool actually. And yeah, but it got some restrictions how much length of the file it can load. So just keep in mind, I tried to use it to load whole logic app and it didn't work because there is some restrictions how many characters it can read from the file. So yeah, let's be mindful of that. And now let's get started. So I have these notes where I've just to save some time, put some notes. So let's create a folder called modules here, right? And in this demo, I want to show you a very simple scenario, which is very common. I want to create a function app, right? So to create a function app, I need two things, storage account and a app service plan, right? And then the function app. So let's see how we can use modules to have a separate module for each resource and then use main file to get to deploy all the resources. So let's say storage count dot bicep. So what you can do is you can start typing storage. So if you see this it's already inbuilt templates are there. So if you click on this, so if you see it pre-populates all the values for you. So you don't have to type in the values. And for example, if I want to say AKS cluster, right? So I can get started pretty quickly. All the values are already pre-populated. Yeah. So, but if you don't want to do that, then what you can do is we say source and give it any name. And then if we start typing micro, or if you can storage account, right? So it came storage account. If we click here, yeah, if you click storage account, and then you have to pick up the API version, and then we see here. So if you see the required property, it's doing a decent job at the moment. So it will show you what all the required properties are for this resource. So if you click on the, OK, I want to go with the required properties. Yeah, it's just gonna, you have to fill all these details, right? So let's say we're gonna param name equal string. Yeah, and for example, I want to show you how you can just declare minimum length, for example, 3, and you say max length 24, and you say description, for example, only letters and numbers, right? For storage account numbers will help you. So now we got a name, so we're going to use name here, and school. For example, it will show you all the options, right? You don't have to. This is really nice. So if we go with the LRS and kind, it's a storage account v2, right? That's pretty much it. Now let's return the name of the storage account, and it's a string equal to variable SA dot name. So why I'm returning the name here is, and the output. So I want to avoid using depends on. So location, let's just say scroll. Yeah, and yeah, my storage account bicep template is ready, right? So now let's add another file called app service plan dot bicep. Yeah, same thing. Name, it's a string, and source app service plan. So server, yeah, so it's a server farm, this version, and required properties, name is coming from location, and I think under properties, then you say it will show you an array, and it will show you, let me see what's the values are. I think it's, you have to declare okay, let me just have a look. Yeah, school, right? Sorry. No, it's not a property. I think it's kind. I think it's Windows or Linux, and then school, right? So as an object, and I think name is, for example, Y1 because it's a consumption base, and so the tier dynamic, right? Have to say capacity to be 0. Yeah, now we're gonna return output uh, uh, server form ID, which is string equal to app service ID, right? So we need that server form ID to create our app service plan, right? So now real quick, we got function app bicep bigger param, just conscious of time. Or what I will do is, let me just some code here. Just want to show you some other stuff. So what I'm doing here is I'm passing the name and the server form ID, and I need a storage account. So I'm passing the storage account, right? Let's get rid of this thing. Running out of time. And so what I'll do. So what I'm doing here is I'm accepting a storage account name as a parameter, and then I'm using existing keyword here, and I'm linking to that storage account. And at the moment, we cannot get the connection string from storage account. We can only get key, and this is a nice syntax with Bicep to get the key. So you can say storage account, which is here, list keys, and it's going to list keys and an arrays. So we can say keys, first one, and the value, right? And then we using string interpolation to create a connection string, right? And then we're going to returning the name of the function app, which I've been doing pretty much in all the templates. So now we're going to create a main template, main dot bicep. So this is our workflow kind of, which is in whatever order we want to deploy. So for example, in this case, we want to deploy storage account first and app service plan. We can deploy parallelly, and then we deploy function app, right? So maybe, so here, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy paste, just conscious of the time. Here, what I'm doing is I'm getting a resource name suffix, and I'm using this function called unique string, and which is getting the unique string of the resource group ID. And I'm taking first 10 character. It returns, I think, 13 or 14 characters, but I'm just taking first 10, for example. So I'm using this take function, right? And then um, now if we want to start using module, so we type module, and let's say we call it SA, and we'll say, OK, there is a folder called module and a storage account and equal. And we'll say, OK, what are the properties? We'll figure out all the properties that we need to pass. So it's saying name. This is the name of the deployment. So we can just say, so whatever name we pass, for example, right? So we say SA dash dollar. For example, deployment dot name. So whatever deployment name we give, and this is the name that we have to pass. So that's what I was telling you before. If I say where, I say storage account name, so we can declare variable close to the resources. For example, like here, using this syntax, so resource a name suffix. So I'm using this storage account. So I'm starting with SA and then unique string, right? So that's my storage account name, and I'm putting here. And one really cool thing I like about this is that if you say control click, let's say you want to visit the module, right? For some reason you want to check something. If you click control click, control, and it will take you to the storage account file, right? So it's control click, it will take you there. You can have a look easily. And if you say control click here, control click here, and it will show you your parameters. So if you defined your module with all, all the required properties and decorators and all, so you don't really need to go back to your module. So you can control click here. For example, in this case, I said minimum length is 3, maximum is 4, only letters and numbers. So you can see, you can easily consume modules created by other people, right? So if they put the parameters, descriptions, and everything correctly. So here we go. Our this will create a storage account, and now let's say where app service plan name. For example, I'm going with the ASP, same resource suffix, and then pretty much same thing we are going to do. I'll just probably copy paste the code just to save time. And I just put a name here. So I just replace this with name, right? And I think I named something else there. Yeah, that's all good. So yeah, if you see here, the variable I'm creating close to the resource where I'm using it. So instead of creating on the top, like with ARM template, so you don't have to scroll up and down because I'm only using that variable here, right? So now I'm deploying these both modules parallelly, right? They don't have any dependency on each other, so they can be deployed easily at the same time. But now I want to deploy my function app, right? So let me copy paste this code here. And so what I'm doing here, if we go to function app template, so we're accepting name, server farm ID, and storage account name. And so what I'm doing is I'm passing FN and resource suffix and my storage account name. So what I'm doing is I think I called it SA, and don't get confused with this name. This is the name of the deployment, not the output. So you need to go to outputs dot, and we are returning the name. So we are returning not here from storage account, the name of the storage account, right? So when we do this, the Bicep will automatically figure out that this module has a dependency on SA, which is our storage account module. So it will automatically deploy this after successfully deploying the storage account. So same with app service plan, output.server farm ID, right? And because of time, we got rid of this. So that's pretty much it. So all our template is ready, and we can right click here and say build just to test that our template is fine. We can click on build. So I say build succeeded, and it even compiled it to JSON ARM template file. If we want, we can go and have a look at generated ARM template, right? Just in case if you want to have a look. And once we are happy, right, that this everything looks okay, what we can do is we can quickly terminal, go back. So that's my resource group name, and I'm using this command az deployment group create. And so this is what I'm doing is I see my resource group name is coming from this variable and main.bicep. So main.bicep is basically an orchestrator which is deploying multiple modules, right? So the benefit of this approach is that if I want to deploy another module, I don't have to change my CI/CD pipeline because all I'm doing is executing the orchestrator, right? And this is the name of the deployment. I'm saying main 001. Generally, you want to pass a unique name from your CI/CD pipeline, like the release ID or something, so that you get a unique name. So now if we kick this in, and hopefully we did everything right. my success rate with Bicep is lot better compared to ARM template, right? So the tooling is so good, so you hardly there are any chances that you make mistakes in Bicep compared to ARM templates. So now if we go back to um, um, our resource group that are here, and if we start refreshing, I'm on the deployment tab. So you see that it kicks all the deployment and app service plan and storage accounts are happening at the same time because they can happen in the parallel, but function app hasn't started yet, right? So if we refresh now, function app deployment has also started, right? And it probably will take a few seconds to complete. And then if we go to overview here, we can see our app service plan storage accounts already created, and shortly our is still running. Maybe I think the first time we are doing deployment, so that's why. Yeah, while it's doing, what other thing I really want to show you is there's this really cool thing. If you click on here, say you open visualizer, so you can see visualize your template. It's really good. Actually, I tried on very complex ARM templates, so Bicep templates. So if you see here, it's telling that in function app we have function app resource and storage account, and this module depends on app service plan and storage account modules, right? This is really good with even with complex templates as well. So even though in the module, in the main, we are using module, right? We're not directly creating any resources, but it's still able to figure out that in this SA module, we are deploying storage account, right? That's really cool as well. And you can do other cool stuff. For example, if you are accepting, let's say you're deploying SQL database, right? And you're accepting a SQL password, right? So if you say SQL password and it's a string, for example, and because it's a password, so it's a secure parameter, right? And if you assign a default value, say I love Bicep #123. So you see, it's giving you a kind of warning. It's saying you are giving a hard-coded value to secure parameter. You shouldn't give, right? That's what it's telling us, right? And if we build it, it will build fine. But actually, we can add a config file here and turn that warning into an error. If we just want to do that, so we can do that, and then it will start giving errors, and then our build will fail. Basically, if we are using AZ Bicep build in our build pipeline, and we can do these kind of things as well to prevent, to standardize the way we want to write templates. So I think it's done now. Yeah, so it's done. All good. If we go back to our thing here, we should have all three resources created. So just one last thing I want to show you is what if. So for example, I'm using standard LRS. So if I change that to, for example, standard this one, right? And I just want to see before deploying my template, I just want to see what I have changed, for example, right? So I can run this command here. So what I'm doing here is instead of create here, I'm using what if, and I'm giving the resource group name and the main file, right? So it should tell me what has changed between the state that we have in Azure at the moment and my template. So it's not perfect, but it does a decent job. So it will show you, it will go and query and fetch the state from Azure, and it will show you what has changed, right? For example, it's telling me that in the storage account, the SKU has changed from this to this, even though it's also telling me that my server farm, the kind has changed from function app to Windows. I don't know why it's saying that. I haven't made that change. And you can also, I think, pass some, you can pass some flag if you only want. See, it's now giving modified, ignore, no effect, all those things back. I think you can pass some flag, and if you only want to see the changes returned, right? So if you have a very complex template, this output might be huge. So you don't want to see this, for example, because nothing has changed. So you can ignore this. So yeah, that's all I have for today. Any questions? Any feedback?
Yeah, we did have a few questions. Let's go back. Let's see where we are. I think Wayne was answering some of the questions.
Yeah.
So Damien had asked if you could do deployments in Azure DevOps, and are there tasks there? And yeah, Wayne has said yes, Bicep tasks are in Azure DevOps.
I haven't used Bicep, but I used this command, az deploy, Azure CLI command from the Azure CLI task.
Yeah.
The task that has Azure Resource Manager deployment task, right? Something like that. The one that we have been using with ARM. Based on my knowledge, that deploys ARM template at the moment. It doesn't deploy Bicep. I don't know if they changed recently in last few weeks, but it only deploys ARM. So you can use this same command from Azure CLI task and deploy the Bicep directly without compiling to ARM template.
Okay, well, Wayne says that for your information, for non-CLI users, Bicep also works with PowerShell, but it isn't installed with the AZ module, so you have to grab it separately.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so there's that. Bicep tester. Can you generate a random password and store it into a vault secret using Bicep? Question from Ash.
Yeah, good question. Might have to see, like, if we probably go and generally I go this website, which is if you tech Bicep, so you have Bicep functions. I use it a lot. So here all the Bicep functions are defined, right? Let's see if there is a range, union, deployment environment. So see all this load text that I was showing you before, and there is extension list.
Dan, just quickly on that, Wayne here. I know Amrit's looking for that. I'm concerned about idempotency. If someone's trying to generate something randomly and putting it in an ARM or a Bicep template, like how could it? Isn't it designed to generate exactly the same thing every time? So if something random would be tricky. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, a new GUID is there. For example, if you want to generate a new GUID every time you run your deployment, for example, yeah, that's the probably you can use new GUID.
Just on that one there, I have seen some organizations in the past use GUIDs for passwords, that they want their infrastructure to not, only to connect to itself, but not to have humans involved in the passwords. I have seen that, and there's some trade-offs with that, like obviously, but that's one example where you don't want idempotency for that particular part of the template.
Okay, and with an ARM template, would you use functions for that?
So you can just do a new GUID in ARM.
Okay. I don't know if it's the same in ARM, but in Bicep, when you do new GUID, it generates the same thing every time. So someone else could just run it and then like locally and generate the password.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, I thought this new GUID should give you new GUID every time.
It's based on a seed or something like that. So if someone feeds it the same string seed value.
Right, yeah.
I think unique string probably, if you're generating it, for example, here I am using resource group.id. If I'm deploying to the same resource group again and again, it's gonna generate the same unique string, right? And so, but not sure about the GUID one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably not the best one for the password.
Yeah.
But the other one, like, so definitely an ARM. I can't speak to the Bicep new GUID, but I would have imagined it'd be the same underlying, because Bicep compiles to ARM and it runs in ARM, right?
Yeah.
So I would imagine that because the new GUID in the ARM, that's definitely a different GUID each time.
Yeah.
if you don't feed it a seed, you know, you just go new GUID without anything.
Oh, right. Yeah, well, actually, to be honest, I might not have. I've never tried actually just going new GUID in Bicep without a seed value. So it might work exactly the same.
Ah, nice. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think we answered that.
Another comment actually from Wayne. Great demos. Modular, reusable, dry. Don't repeat yourself. Good. Then from a question from Ashley, if I delete a resource in a Bicep configuration, can it show me that it will remove it before I deploy it?
Let's see.
And to clarify, Wayne asked if do you mean with what if? And Ashley said yes, or a plan in a Terraform world.
No, I don't think so, because we removed that, for example, function app. It won't show, because I think with the with ARM and there are two modes, right? Incremental and I think other one is called complete, for example. And if you're running an incremental mode, which is default, then yeah, see, it's not showing. I don't know what this. Ignored. So for example, it's showing ignored. So that means maybe you have to interpret that as that this one is existing in your Azure, but it's not in the ARM template. But I think it's because if in the incremental mode, it's not, you cannot delete resources using Bicep.
Okay, because Ashley added, I've had issues where ARM templates won't remove resources, and I'm too scared to use them in the complete mode without being able to view what changes it will make first, which resources will be removed, that is.
Yeah, complete is bit dangerous. You have to be super careful if you're using complete mode, because it's if you made some changes directly in Azure, which most of the cases we do, if you create something and then we run complete mode, it's gonna just wipe out everything else which is not in the ARM template or Bicep template.
Only one on that one would be I'd encourage CI/CD pipelines and test it out in the lower environments. Don't be afraid of complete, because those changes in production that people are making without the pipeline, they should be removed. So
100% they should be.
yeah. So don't be afraid of complete. Complete's actually it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. But being able to test an environment, that's critical. So if you're in that situation where you don't have a pipeline, yeah, then I absolutely agree. It's very tricky. But I recommend a pipeline. I recommend testing it in a lower environment, and I do recommend complete because it's good.
Yeah, that's one feature that I missed from Terraform, having to go back to ARM templates. Because in Terraform, you do your plan, you see what's going to be removed or changed, and you can, approve that in like a stage in a pipeline, and then the next pipeline will apply it. So I'm trying to find that sort of functionality in ARM templates of Bicep, so I can have sort of confidence that this is the desired state, and it'll make it like that. But I can actually view the changes before it'll get applied.
Yeah,
I think that's where the state file makes that possible.
I think maybe with Bicep it's more near real time, because with Terraform what we have is state file, right, which is not what really is in Azure. So if somebody changed something in Azure, Terraform that don't have that change, right? Terraform won't show you the difference, right? This one with whatever, it actually goes to Azure and query the current state and bring it back. So it's not perfect, but it's improving, I guess. So, but it's give you the real time, near real time state from Azure compared to the Terraform stage.
Okay, well, you got some compliments. Awesome demo, very helpful. Thanks. Wayne says, yes, it was so good. Chris says, indeed, thanks, Amrit. And then Chris also says, for the password question, maybe you could write an Azure function that generates a random password and call that as a UDF as part of the process.
Yeah, good idea.
I do want to point out one thing there is that functions are dropped in Bicep. User-defined functions in the template are dropped in Bicep. There's just one little limitation I want to call out there.
Yeah. And the other limitation is this is Azure only at the moment. I don't know what's the plan going forward. If you are multi-cloud and Terraform, for example, right? So this Bicep is Azure only at the moment. So yeah, that's another maybe, yeah.
Just on the multi-cloud one, and apologies for the Microsoft Kool-Aid, so block your ears if you don't want to hear Kool-Aid. But there is Azure Arc. So Azure Arc will allow you to run multi-cloud with a common operating system, if you like. So you can run Azure in AWS or GCP and have all of the, well, not all, the things that have been released to Azure Arc, which is a good portion of stuff. Arc is the future. I agree. So you can get that multi-cloud with all of the Azure PaaS services that you've come to love. And that's a great option. Oh, and sorry, if Todd was here, is Todd here? He would also say that you can run your own Azure region in your basement on Raspberry Pi. So, you know, if that's one of
the powered by 64.
Yes. So Azure Arc, check out Azure Arc if you're looking for multi-cloud, because that kind of solves the problem of the multi-cloud, and it also allows you to leverage the functionality or rather the productivity of having dedicated cloud. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. And apologies for the Kool-Aid, like if it's too much, but check out Arc. It's awesome.
Okay, a few more comments about great talk and demo and showing the power of ARM and Bicep looking much simpler than ARM. Yeah, good work. Tim asks, I'm curious about how the conversion works for deep linked templates though.
I tried, because I have been using a nested template a lot before ARM. So I compiled most of my nested template using Bicep. It's really good. There are a couple of problems, like one of my nested template, I was passing the value to my actual template from Key Vault as a reference, and it started giving me some weird error saying param is null. And yeah, it took me some time to figure out, but I would say 98% it's really good. It does decent job decompiling your ARM templates.
Awesome. Any last questions before I end the recording? And we'll let happy people stick around and have a general chat afterwards. But if there's any more questions, okay. So Tim says so mostly good, but some potential fixer-uppers. Awesome, great info.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Thanks so much, Amrit. That was a great presentation. It's very popular tonight. You got a lot of engagement there. So yeah, Bicep looks really awesome. And thanks for taking the time to put that together and present to us.
No worries. Always pleasure working with you, Dan.
Thank you.
All right. So keep your eyes on the Meetup site for what next month's presentation is. And I'll end the recording now.